My name is Hayley and I'm here to introduce my 5 overarching principles to use within a classroom to create an open, safe, positive and inclusive classroom environment. So I have created the CHEEE framework, which stands for collaboration, honesty, expectations, engagement and enthusiasm. So these 5 principles are used in a framework type situation where you have our classroom goal right in the middle and each of our 5 overarching principles on the outside, which work together in this continuously moving system that helps to create that positive classroom environment that as teachers we all strive for. So when creating this framework, my main starting point was I asked myself what I think the ideal classroom is. And for me, I went back to my secondary school environment, and my favorite classrooms were the classrooms where I had fun, I was engaged, I was interested in what I was learning, and I really liked my teacher. And I know people say students don't have to like you, but if a student doesn't like you in at least some way, or they're not going to respect you, and then they're not going to listen to you, and that, learning system isn't going to occur when those things aren't present. So they were my main focal points for developing my principles. So to begin with, we have collaboration. Now, collaboration in this instance, what I'm striving to achieve is that we have a classroom that works together. We're a team and we are constantly using each other as a resource. I want students to come in and feel that they are supported all the time, not just by me, but by their peers. So ways that I wish to do that is to have a classroom set up that is set up in that environment. So you walk in and there are table groups, and the groups are set up so that students are sitting around the edges of the table facing each other. So already there's that facilitation and that encouragement of the flow of ideas, of discussion, of sharing and of working together. Also, another way is by using a ritual, perhaps in the instance, if you're struggling with a concept, you need some advice on an idea, you want to ask a question, your first point of call is to ask your table group before the teacher. That way, it's really encouraging students to use each other as a resource and to share ideas and to understand that your peers should be there to help you as well. And in that way, we're creating a community of learners. We're creating a classroom that's a community, which really helps in a number of ways with students to feel safe and inclusive, because it means that all students are included in the learning. And in this classroom and in my classroom, you're included, you belong, you're valued, you're special, you have something to offer. So that principle's main goal of collaboration is to make sure that all students are included in our learning and that all students feel valued and feel that they have something to give to our classroom. And so my second principle, honesty. Again, I can't stress enough that this principle is really important to me. I think it's extremely valuable that a teacher needs to be honest, they need to be authentic, and they need to have the ability to empathize with their students. I think it's really important as a teacher to not hide behind that mask of teacher authority that, I'm your teacher, I'm here to teach you, you're the student, you were here to learn. I don't think it should be about that. I think it should be a two-way system where you're working and learning off each other. And to do that, teachers need to be honest with their students. And the most simplest way I feel to do that is to be vulnerable. Show students that you can make mistakes, that you're human as well. And we're on an even playing field. We're in this together sort of thing. And create that relationship with students. A practical way of reaching this, of doing this in the classroom could be, you've got kids, we're working on a task and you've given them some freedom to be creative because that's what we're all about. And they've started to get really messy, they've started to get really loud, they've started to misuse some of the equipment. Instead of getting really angry and using that teacher, right, this is not on, what you're doing is disrespectful, why are you doing this, why are you all being so disrespectful to me? Try a different approach, be honest with how this is making you feel. All right, guys, stop. I love that you're being super creative and you're getting really excited about this task, but all of this mess and the way that we're using some of our equipment, it's stressing me out. I'm not coping with how these things are working and it's really starting to distract me and I can't quite focus properly. What can we do, guys? Students are likely to respond in a much more positive manner because you've been vulnerable, you've shared some personal feelings And they'll respect that and they'll say, oh gosh, we've made her feel really, she's not coping, this isn't good. You know what? They're probably going to come up with a solution that's a lot more positive and something that you probably would never have thought of in the first place as well. So our third, expectations. Now, it's a really known common practice to create that early establishment of expectations in your classroom. It avoids confusion, and students know from the get-go this is what's expected when they walk into your classroom. However, I think that to go one more from that is to create those expectations together as a joint endeavor. And this again plays into the collaboration, and it plays into the honesty as well, because you're being honest with the students and you're empowering them, and you're entrusting in them some responsibility of how this classroom is going to run. It's not just, these are my rules, if you break them, these are the consequences. It's never going to work. They're not their rules. They don't believe that those rules have anything to do with them, because they weren't even there to create them. But if you're sitting down together, you're listening, you're understanding each other's needs and each other's wants, you're going to create some expectations that students are going to feel accountable for, because they have some ownership over them. They were there with the process of making them, and they have felt this teacher is letting us have some, responsibility and some power with how our classroom's going to run. This is great, and we're going to respect these more. And a practical way that this can be used is, you've created all of these expectations. They're set from the get-go. A student starting to act out, perhaps starting to, disrupt the expectations. You can simply put, for example, Matthew, what you're doing, it's starting to it's not the right thing to do, and it's starting to disrespect our expectations. So you're actually starting to disrespect the entire class. It's not, this is the rule, you're breaking, you're going to detention. It's think about what we created together and think about what you're doing, because you're actually disrespecting the entire classroom. And again, it's bringing in that community of learners, and that sense that we're in this together in our learning. We want to achieve together. Fourth one, enthusiasm. That's me being enthusiastic about enthusiasm, because to me, enthusiasm is infectious. When you have someone come in who's excited about what they're talking about, you can see the joy in their face when they're speaking, they're passionate, it's infectious. You can't help but feel that same way about that topic. And teachers, I feel, especially in secondary school, just start to believe that enthusiasm is gone. There's not as much play, there's not as much movement. It's just sitting in a classroom and doing the theory. And, in primary school, there's so much enthusiasm. We're so passionate, and our learners are so passionate. And I think that we need to stop thinking that teenagers aren't passionate learners anymore. They are. We just need to reignite that spark. We need to find a way that touches them and makes them passionate. And I think the best way to do that is to get to know your students, find out what they're interested about, find out some interests, use the topic that you're using in a really interesting and creative way, and align it with what our students are into and what you're into, because like I said, that enthusiasm is infectious. Engagement. Again, intercorrelating. We need to engage our students, and I think the best way to do that is to, again, align what we're doing in the classroom with things that are relevant to them. So much has changed in our society, but yet our classrooms are the same. Our school schedules are the same. Our setups are the same with teacher, whiteboard, students. It's all the same, but everything around us is changing. So the way that we teach things needs to change in that, and to engage our students, we need to engage what's happening with them in their social context. And again, it's getting to know them. It's finding what that is. And I think, so for example, in a health class, which is one of my passions, we're talking about the Australian diet at the moment, and our healthy eating, and all of those things that are to do with health and well-being. So what's relevant right now? It's phones, social media, apps. So part of our assignment, let's create an app that's going to touch base with 16 to 15-year-olds, because that's relevant to them. They know apps, they know social media, they know what is targeted, and they can use it in a way that's in their classroom to help show learning and show understanding and achievement. So basically, all of these things are an intercorrelated connection and a system and a framework that's used to create that inclusiveness, positivity in a classroom. I'm a big believer that when students are positive about what they're learning, and when the environment they're in is positive and it's encouraging and it's engaging and it's really creating those skills that aren't just learning the topic content. They're promoting confidence, self-esteem, self-regulation, research, things that are going to help in future and can show relevance to their future is what is going to create a sustainable, positive environment that students will love coming to your class. Thank you for listening.